The reality we live in can be a very strange place. Most of the time, fact being stranger than fiction. How will we ever start to understand this reality we live in unless we question everything? Join me and a guest as we unravel the mysteries of this reality, one topic at a time. This is Inquiries for Reality with Shayn Jones.
Reality isn't what it seems. Abductees taking aboard a craft with a tractor beam. Is life a simulation or an astral dream? Aliens travel through black holes in different galaxies. Life is a bizarre odyssey. With the mic talking about philosophy. Well, Bigfoot is stalking campers as a Wendigo walks through the woods of sharpened antlers, using a Ouija board to talk to the dead like a necromancer. There's so many questions and not enough answers. So if you're interested in mysteries and abnormalities, tune in and listen to Inquiries of Our Reality. So if you're interested in mysteries and abnormalities, tune in and listen to Inquiries of Our Reality.
What is up, Inquirers, and welcome to the expanse of deep, open-minded conversation. I'm the one they call Shane, and today for you guys, I have something a bit different that I haven't actually covered on the show before. A possible person who's had a Thunderbird sighting. And not only that, but has actually possibly photographed this thing. Maybe even a pterodactyl. We don't know for sure yet. They kind of live in one of those states where there's a little bit of different flying cryptid sightings, a variety all around. Missouri is the state that we're talking about today. And just above that, as everybody's familiar with, they have the Van Meter Visitor, which was the pterodactyl-like being. And on the other side of that, they have Illinois, which has the flying hominid-type beings. So, what could this thing possibly be? I guess we'll have to figure it out, and we'll have to analyze these photos, but I think you guys are definitely going to enjoy this conversation. And not only that, but we dive into a bunch of other Sasquatch and paranormal experiences, so it's a bit of a smorgasbord of a little bit of everything, but those always end up being some of my favorite episodes, of course. Before we get into this episode today, a little bit of news and updates in front of house stuff. Number one, and this will be the last time you guys have to hear me say it because it is happening tomorrow, Small Town Monster Fest. That'll be happening June 29th, aka tomorrow, in downtown Canton, Ohio, at the Doubletree by Hilton. Kids 12 and under are free. Everybody else, you guys will have to make sure you scoop yourself a ticket. I'm not sure if tickets are available at the door. I'm assuming that they probably will be. So if you guys haven't already gotten your tickets, you guys might be able to get them at the door. But I'll be vending. Orin's going to be there. Jenny's going to be there. Gabby's going to be there. Riley's going to be there. We're going to have the full Open Minds Media crew. So I'm really hoping to see some of you guys out there. And if you guys do end up coming out, make sure you guys stop at our table and come say hi to us and check out all of the cool stuff that we got at the table. But moving on to front of house, if anybody has an encounter that you'd like to report, you guys can report those to ommencounterreports at outlook.com. And depending on what you guys want to do with those, I may even have you as a guest on the show to share your experience, or I could read in the beginning of the show. Or if you don't want it to be talked about whatsoever and you just want somebody to talk about and share your experiences with completely off air, that's totally okay too. I would love to do that with you. And if you're in a state reasonably close to me, I may even be able to possibly come out and investigate it. But none of that will happen unless you guys report those encounter reports to ommencounterreports at outlook.com. Or you guys go to the link tree, and there is a specific submission form for that, of course. And if you guys enjoyed this show, please check out my other podcast, Bizarre Encounters, that I do with my awesome co-host over there, Orin, where we deep dive into a variety of interesting and bizarre topics. And of course, go and check out our YouTube/Patreon exclusive show, Bizarre Inquiries, where we take in a bunch of your listener questions and let our minds wander, of course. And you guys can always submit questions for that we can discuss on the show. And of course, if you guys submit a great question, we will give you guys a shout out. And even if it is a Patreon exclusive episode, we'll make sure that you guys get a copy of it. And if you guys want to support the show, you guys can do so through the Patreon. Like I said, recently updated those tiers probably about a month or so ago. So there's a lot of new options over there and new perks for all of the different tiers. And you guys can also support the show through the OMM merch store. And guys, don't forget, I did recently drop that new design that says alien or demon. You decide, with this really cool design where it's a mix between like an alien and a demon, depending on which way you look at it, of course. And if you guys want to scoop that, Cryptid 10 is still active if you guys want to get 10% off. And if you guys are coming to Small Town Monster Fest, you guys will also get an exclusive merch store discount exclusively there. So definitely something to look out for, and another reason to make sure you guys stop at the table. And the third way you guys can support the show is through leaving a review or rating for the show on iTunes or Spotify. Greatly, greatly appreciate that. Haven't gotten a typed out review in a long time, so it'd be really cool if you guys wouldn't mind submitting some of those so that I can read them on the show and give you guys a big shout out. And you guys can help me boost up the show in the algorithm and make it so that more people are able to see the show. And if you guys want to stay up to date on the show, you guys can check out Inquiries of Our Reality and Open Minds Media on Instagram, Facebook, Discord, YouTube, and TikTok. And every single thing that I mention is all available in the link tree, which is available down in the show description. And with that, let's get into the show. Please welcome to the show, Alex Shae, photographer. How's it going today?
Good. Thank you for having me.
Absolute pleasure to have you on the show. I recently heard you on Bo's show, Bump Podcast, for anybody who may not be familiar, and you're talking about some fantastic photography that you happen to capture. So I definitely wanted to have you come on the show and talk about that on top of all of your other interesting experiences that you've had. But I guess before we get into all of the meat and potatoes of the conversation, how I usually like to start everything off is about who somebody is, what they do, what got them into what they do, and kind of give people a little bit of background before we get into everything.
All right. Sounds good. I'm a freelance photographer. I've been, I want to say, doing that since probably 2010, I would say, is when I first really started doing that. I've been taking pictures my whole life, camping, going on canoe trips, just being out in the wilderness all the time. And I've loved taking pictures even since I was a little kid. So me just being out and taking pictures in nature is just something that I've always done. And even more so now that I've been capturing really weird stuff and not even knowing that I'm capturing it. That's probably the weirdest part about it. Yeah, it's been really fun. But yeah, I really enjoy taking pictures, and a lot of people are upset because they look at my page and they're like, okay, well, she was a professional photographer. Why didn't she take better pictures? Well, I was using my iPhone 10 and I was just going on a nature walk. I wasn't out taking professional pictures that day. And then on top of that, I didn't even realize when I took the pictures what I actually had. And it was pretty epic, honestly. And I was terrified at first, but now I'm really kind of embracing it because I found more. And then on top of finding more, then I found more in the picture that I found. It's just been like a snowball of cryptids is what I want to say. But yeah, it's been really fun.
So where did it all kind of start for you? And of course, you'll have to dive a little bit more into the pictures, of course, for anybody that may not be familiar with what you exactly captured in the pictures. But as far as like all the cryptid stuff, did it start for you with these particular pictures that we're about to get into? Or were you already kind of capturing stuff beforehand, like maybe paranormal or anything like that? Or
yeah, I've had that a lot throughout my life, and I wish that I would have been more aware of that when I was doing that stuff. Like there's this hotel in Arkansas. It's called, oh my goodness, what is it called? Something Moon, the Crescent Moon Hotel. That's what it's called. I had an old camera when I went there the first time, and we didn't stay there. We just took a ghost tour. And I remember catching all these orbs and thinking how strange it was. And then looking back, and I went back and did the tour again. And when I took pictures with a newer camera, I never caught anything. And I always thought that was interesting. I feel like the older a camera is, the better it is at capturing things, especially orbs and stuff. I don't know if you've ever had anybody on the show that's experienced that, but
we've had a lot of people talk about that on the show, actually, and we've definitely thrown a lot of different theories back and forth on it. One of the most interesting that I found personally is either the fact that with newer picture technology, it kind of like corrects certain spots, and when it corrects it, it ends up actually correcting these things out of the picture. Or on the other side of it, kind of getting into a little bit more like woo-woo scientific concepts. I had somebody kind of come on and describe this idea about when you try to take a picture of something that's radioactive, how it has like moving particles, so it comes out as like a blur and you can't actually capture the picture properly. And he said that if these things are existing within two different realities, for example, or if there's something that's crossing over from another reality, they may not be in the same wavelength as us. When you try to capture these pictures, they end up looking blurry, or they just don't quite look right because it's almost like trying to capture a picture of something that's radioactive.
Yes. My boss got me a coffee cup just recently that said something like, "I'm sorry, I'm just naturally blurry." And it made me laugh so hard. I was like, the support of my coworkers is unreal. They like think I'm gonna catch Bigfoot or something, and I love it.
Maybe one day. You gotta cross your fingers.
I mean,
You never know what
I'm
you might
gonna
catch.
protect them is what I feel like. I don't want to catch anybody. I just want to help them, or maybe they can help us. I don't know, but yeah. So I've been getting a lot of stuff throughout my time, and I've also noticed, like on the same topic, when my camera doesn't work. There's been instances where I've been inside of a home and I'm trying to take a picture, and anywhere else in the room I can take a picture of, but in a specific area I won't be able to take a picture, or for a certain period of time my camera will stop working. And regardless of if it is focused on a specific object and the camera can pick it up, it refuses to take the picture. And I found that very strange. When I had these ladies come from Flint Paranormal to go to Burr Oak Woods and like check all this stuff out, both of their batteries on their phones died within an hour of us being there, maybe. And they said that's very common with stuff trying to communicate with you. It'll drain your batteries. And then it was also not allowing me to take pictures at certain times, and it would just, you could hear it. The camera's trying to take the picture, but it just won't. And so we noticed little stuff like that while we were out there. It was pretty interesting.
Man, when it comes to that kind of stuff too, I'm always wondering why exactly the power drain might happen. And I've always thrown a couple different theories on it. And either one, I mean, if these things are coming from another reality, maybe it has something to do with that conversion from that reality over to this one, that there's some type of like energy drain. Or on the other side, if these things are strictly beings of pure energy, they might need that energy in order to have enough energy to communicate in the first place. So it's almost just like borrowing that so that they can communicate. But ironically, it's always like you want to capture them communicating, but they're stealing your power to communicate. So it's like that catch-22 concept.
That's basically how they explained it to me when we were out there, because they had their K2 meter and it went off a couple times, but not enough to where we could start having like a conversation with something. So, but they definitely noted that, because the lady was like, I haven't even been using my phone like at all. And it was just, both their phones were completely dead. And I kind of was like, well, I'm glad my phone's working, because we were all three out here with dead batteries. That would kind of not be good.
I mean, a lot of the time too, I'll hear about people where they'll bring like a case for like their camera, and I'll have like multiple batteries for it, and they'll cycle through them and all the batteries will be dead, or there'll be like one left that has like 20% power on it or something. But
I've heard people going out and like trying to do research in the middle of the night, and they're planning on going all night, but then they don't have any batteries to keep recording stuff. So they're like, what? I mean, I guess we're done.
That's what they're actually trying to do. Just make you leave the area by draining your power. And they're like, what are you going to do now? If you find anything interesting, nobody's going to believe you.
Now, buddy. I talked about that with Bo, about them. And I've heard this recently, and there's this documentary called A Flash of Beauty, Paranormal Bigfoot. It's on Tubi right now. If anyone wants to watch it, it's free. But it is confirmed. All these witnesses tell these stories, and it just confirmed all these things that I've been thinking about. And I was telling Bo about that. I was like, you know, they like send off this vibration to like let us know that like we shouldn't be in the area, like this instinctive type feeling that we know. And then if we don't listen to that, then they throw something at us, they make a noise. And then if we don't listen to that, then they show themselves, and then they're like, hey, you know, I tried all these little things to tell you to leave and you haven't left, so please leave. And, you know, usually that works. They don't, you know, not too aggressive, but the guy on there said that there's some of them that have been messed by humans, and they are a little grumpy. And, you know, I don't blame them, because there's a lot of not nice people out there. So,
hey, they become celebrity status, and I'm sure that there's a lot of celebrities that would love to be able to just drain all the power of the people in the paparazzi. I mean, if it's one of these paranormal locations that people are constantly trafficking at, just always bothering the same ghost, trying to get some kind of reaction, I'm sure they get to a point where they're just like, all right, you're done. Zip, done. Bye.
I've had enough of you guys.
So, I mean, kind of getting into the photography stuff, I know that you have experiences that are like beyond your photography stuff from just being out in the woods and everything. But I kind of figure we can kind of come around to it with that one and cover all of your stuff that's based in your photography first. So wherever you kind of want to start with it, getting into maybe the bigger experience, unless you got some other ones that you kind of want to use to lead up to that one.
Well, I mean, the stuff, I know some of the people may have listened to the podcast that I was on with Bo, but I kind of, what I did was I started with when we first started having our experiences, and I saved I call them the Men in Black, but this lady wrote an article about this guy, and he was called the Burrow Woods Entity, is what she named him. But that was our first big experience that we had out there, and it's probably the best one to start with, just because it was so odd. And then after that happened, then all this other stuff, like spiraled. But to just kind of start out with it, I've been going on that specific trail. It's called the Bethany Falls Trail. It has these huge limestone rocks. And when I mean huge, I mean they're like 2 stories tall. You can climb on them. You can jump from rock to rock. And they go for a really long time. And you kind of can weave in and out of them. The trail goes in and out of them. They've been there forever. And they're amazing. And so that was like our favorite trail to go on.
This is in Missouri, right?
Yeah, Missouri.
Okay.
Yep. Kansas City area. And they have a few other trails, but I had just always known that trail. And since I knew it, that's just always the one that I went on. And when I got older and I had kids, I took my kids out there. And me and my son would go on this trail all the time. And like I said, it was our favorite trail. So we were out there maybe once, twice a week. But we were always out there in the daylight. So we had never been out there when it was dark. And I think sunset was 8:00. And I told him, I don't really want us out super late. But we ended up being out there for a while. We go on what I told both side quests. And we do that a lot, where we'll find a creek and we'll go play in the creek, or we'll find a random trail and we're like, wow, where does that go? And we'll go find a huge tree with a bunch of mushrooms on it, and we'll be there for God knows how long. But
side quests tend to do that. No matter where a side quest is, it ends up leading into some other couple-hour adventure.
And then we find a huge walking stick, and it's like a whole thing. But we're on this trail, and usually when we're on the trail, we're talking about one of the new documentaries that I've watched. And that specific day, I had watched one of my favorite documentaries, which was called Men in Black. And we're talking about this documentary and walking around, and it's really dark. And Xavier's just like, man, it is not the same out here. It's like a way different vibe. And I'm like, yeah, you're right. Like, we should probably, pick it up and start going. And as we're still talking about this Men in Black story, I'm telling him about Dan Aykroyd and how he was going to do this alien show, and it ended up getting canceled, and he never got it aired, and had this whole weird moment with this guy. And as we're talking about it, we just see this guy, and what I explain is it looked like he spawned out of the ground, but I think it was because he was wearing all black that it maybe just appeared like he did, because it took my eyes so long to adjust because it was so dark out. And as he's walking towards us, I just instantly, out of like relief, I just go, oh, thank God you're not Sasquatch. And I say it out loud because I'm just like relieved. And he's still walking towards us. And my son was like, oh my gosh, Mom, why'd you say that? And we're kind of laughing. But as this guy walks by, I realize that he's wearing all black. He's a slender man, but he's very, he just seemed very monotone, kind of robotic. He walks past us. I didn't get the greatest feeling. He never nodded his head, said hello. So me and my son kind of get this weird feeling, but I'm just like, maybe he just didn't want to interact with us, and that's fine.
Was he in normal dress, or was he dressed kind of weird?
He was wearing a tight black t-shirt. It was all black. All I could see was the black, and then black pants. And he was bald. He had no hair. It kind of looked like he had a headphone in, but I couldn't really tell. I was too busy just trying to see every part that I could, because it was just so odd that a person, when the park is about to close, he's going out on the trail and it's just, pitch black out. We didn't even want to be out there because how dark it was. But anyway, so he continues walking. We continue walking. Well, my son, just for whatever reason, he decides that he's going to turn around and look at this guy. And when he turns around to look at this guy, he said that, he goes, Mom, he's walking towards us. And I was like, what? He had turned around and he was walking towards us. When my son says that and makes eye contact with him basically in the dark, the guy just does this whole and just makes this extremely disturbing weird sound. I don't even know how to describe it, but it was just like this, ugh. And I was like, oh my God. I had this huge walking stick. My son said, F this. He starts running. I mean, he's running down this trail. We're almost to the parking lot. And I just was like, just don't freak out. Don't let this person know that you are completely terrified. And I did. I just ran as soon as we got to the parking lot, threw the stick, jumped in the car. And like I said, I tried processing that and tried rationalizing it the best that I could, because I was just like, hey, maybe it was just some weird guy. Probably just some weird guy. There's nothing to it. But my son just kept saying how weird it was. And I knew it was weird, but I just couldn't pinpoint what was wrong with it, but I just knew that guy made us feel really uncomfortable.
Sometimes you just got to trust your gut feeling. Like if somebody feels off, just avoid them,
And that's why I don't go there alone. And my son, he's 13, so he can run for himself. And I know that sounds terrible. He can run for himself just like I can. And I usually do pick up a big walking stick when I'm out there. And it's mainly for the people, just like I told somebody on the first podcast I did, I was like, whether that person was a human or not a human, I was going to swing the stick if they try to, attack me. So
multi-purpose, it pulls you on the path and it knocks others off the path.
it's great. If you go out hiking, pick up a magic walking stick. It could become a great tool for you.
We will be right back after this brief commercial break, so stay tuned. And we are back, so let's hop right in.
Yeah, so this bad experience with this guy really made us uncomfortable. And my son was like, I don't really want to go back on that trail now. Like, that guy kind of ruined it for us. And I'm like, yeah, he kind of did. But, let's not let, like, that guy on that trail, let's try a different trail. And he kind of forced us off that trail. And that's why he's kind of like the beginning of everything, because I felt like he pushed us off that path, which led me to go to different areas of the park that I had actually never been to or explored. And so when he pushed us off that path, it led us to this other path where it's like I want to say like a turkey viewing area. It's a big open space that has a trail on it. But I went out there with all four of my kids, and that's when we heard those monkey sounds that I've talked about before. And that was probably the weirdest experience, because not only did we hear a monkey sound, we heard a creaking door sound. And I've heard a lot of weird theories about what people think about what I said about that, because it was really hard to explain. When you're in a house and you hear that, that's normal. But when you're out in the woods and you hear what sounds like the biggest metal door you've ever heard in your life opening and closing, and then monkey sounds after that, that had to possibly be the weirdest thing to process, because my kids are sitting there telling me that's a monkey. And I'm like, yeah, it is. And we're not at the zoo. It was just, that was so strange. I don't know how to explain that, but
there's a lot of people that have mentioned like a metallic clinking sound before they have like Dogman experiences and stuff. And I've heard a lot of people throw theories about like underground bases for that possibly. I know some people throw portals and stuff, but I've always kind of gone back to like the underground base theory, because it almost kind of makes more sense to me. But like I said, usually it's with Dogman, and I throw theories out that maybe they open the doors to let him hunt once in a while. But it's kind of weird with the Sasquatch aspect of it, because I mean, if the government is aware of them, I'm sure that they're keeping them for whatever means. But the whole releasing them to do whatever thing, like it almost seems kind of weird, unless maybe that there was some type of underground base that these things are possibly just using as a home base, so to speak, could have been abandoned.
That you say that. So that's exactly what the people said in the comments. Some guy said, she's very lucky. Someone said, you're very lucky that you didn't have a horrible experience. And I'm sitting there thinking, I'm like, wait, what? And he's like, when you hear that, that's usually associated with Dogman. And at first I was like, wait a second. But I didn't know, that sounds really weird to me, but if maybe these like Sasquatch or Bigfoot or whatever, if they were like maybe trying to protect us from that moment or something, because I'm going to be 100% honest with you, I've been doing a lot of research, and everything comes to me when it's supposed to come to me. And my photographer friend, he lives in Minnesota, but he has family that lives down here. And he asked me if I knew about this science and technology lab. And this science and technology lab is underground, and it is 180 acres. It is a limestone Limestone Quarry that was purchased in the late 80s, early 90s by this man, Mr. Billings, who was supposed to turn Kansas City into the hydrogen city. He's also associated with a cult that has been investigated for decade upon decades.
Shocker.
He keeps shutting people down and not allowing anything to be publicized. So it'll be copywritten if you write about him, basically. But most recently, people have found loopholes to write about this man and write about the things that he's done. And this science and technology lab apparently has students who live inside of the underground limestone quarry, and nobody really leaves the facility. From what I've gathered, if you sign up for this school, it is not an accredited school, and it is actually probably what your children are using for homeschooling, because this is a program that he has made. It has been in the news for different alleged parents are upset because of the stuff that it's teaching the children. It's very controversial or not appropriate for children, basically. And this man has made this program, but he also, like I said, he also has this cave, and it's directly next to Burr Oak Woods. And I don't know what they do in the science and technology lab. I don't know what they've been doing in the science and technology lab for decades upon decades. But from what people have described, when you go down there, it's very, all the women are wearing the same outfits. It's very, I don't know how to explain it. There's a waterfall down there. I mean, this place is huge, 180 acres underground.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. That's how big it is, or was, when they purchased it. I don't know how much they've done. And someone said on one of the comments, there's this page, like awareness page for my city, Blue Springs. And one of the people said, yeah, it's probably been all that machinery noise been hearing underground. And I was like, oh my gosh, like Skinwalker Ranch, when they were talking about how it sounded like machinery was like going down. And I was like, wait a second, is Stranger Things like literally happening underneath my feet as we speak? Because I was thinking, like, where did this big, huge flying bird come from? Where did the weird footprints come from? They look like humans. They don't look like Sasquatch to me, but I haven't seen a lot of Sasquatch feet. And I don't know what I've seen casts from people, like really big ones, but the one I captured, it looks like, to me, a person, but it don't look like a normal person. It looks like a different person. The toes look weird. It's completely flat-footed. Someone said it could be the bird that I got, but I didn't really see feet in the picture that I took, but it's also not the greatest picture, so I'm not really 100% sure. But I feel like, for whatever reason, I feel like that place has got to do something with stuff that's going on around there, because it's just kind of weird. I mean, and people say, oh, well, Sasquatch can't be out there because all these people live out here, and it's a well-populated area. Well, these things have been here way longer than any of us, and they were here before the pioneers got here. So I'm sure they adapted very well, and I just maybe happen to be open to it more. And maybe that's why they, this lady said people who open that door, or when that door is open for people, it never closes. And I feel like maybe this door was open a really long time ago for me, and maybe it's taken this long for me to just like feel comfortable with it and open that door. And now that I've opened that door, I just keep getting like, the strangest things that I never in a million. I've watched so many documentaries about people getting evidence, and for once in my life, I'm sitting here looking at my own evidence, and it's really honestly pretty cool, because all those people inspired me to get to this point, to get my own evidence. And they said that, just get out there and do it. Go in your backyard and just do it. And that's what I did.
See, I think it's one of those things. It's almost like when you get a new car and then all of a sudden you notice that there's that car everywhere. I feel like sometimes it's not necessarily a matter of like opening yourself up, but almost like just being aware of it. Because the standard person, hears a noise off in the woods. They'll have something like weird happen in the middle of the night, and they just try to like throw it off like it never happened, or they'll just like rationalize it, call it a day, and just be done with it.
Oh, that's me all day. I will try my very best, because I'm like, this cannot be. I had to ask my kids when I found. Well, I already had that one winged creature, but then the second one, I was just like, this is not even. How is this even? Because the weird thing is, it's like I had that on my phone for months, and I had no idea that I had this huge, ginormously a huge bird. I mean, that's just what I want to call it because that's what it looks like. But I really honestly don't know what it is. But it was just sitting there and it was just waiting for me. It was just waiting for me to take the picture of this one so that I would go back. And that's what I did. It was a live photo. Like, that's the coolest part about it is I didn't just get one picture. I got multiple shots of it flying. I got the video of it actually flying away. And then I can just sit there and screenshot each shot that I got of it as it flies away within 3 seconds. Like, it's the coolest thing.
So, I mean, like, what kind of, like, led up to you actually capturing that moment? Was it, like, you were out there and you were just hiking and then you just happened to catch it flying in the woods? Or did you hear some, like, rustling in the trees and then you looked up and then you saw this thing taking off? Or, like, what exactly, like, set it up so that you got into that spot where you were actually capturing that picture?
The trail is like, it goes a little bit and then it stops and it kind of makes a circle and you can go one way or you can go the other. Well, I have 4 kids and we had went on that trail and that loop, and that's when I found that footprint. And I told my kids after we found that footprint, I said, okay, look, I know that you guys want to keep going on this trail, but me and your brother are going to have to go on the rest of the trail before we can see if it's safe for us to go, because I didn't know if the trail kept going or where it went to, and I didn't want to disappoint the kids if we went and then they couldn't go. So when we found that footprint, I was like, I have to go back. Like, there's something weird is going on. I've heard monkey sounds. Now I'm finding weird bear footprints, and it's just one in the middle of nowhere. It's not multiple. I wish it would have been multiple because it would have been neat to see how far apart their feet were. But it was just that one. So that's what made me curious. And the best part about it, and I like telling this part of the story because it's very important or I feel it's important, but when I was going to go on that trail walk that night, it had thunderstormed like crazy. I mean, it was bad. And we were at work and the lightning and the thunder is just like going crazy. And I told my friend at work, I was like, man, I'm not gonna be able to go on this trail walk. And she's like, it'll stop raining like by 5 and you should be fine. I'm like, it's gonna be all muddy, but I'll go, it'll be fine. And we did. And we ended up going. I told you, we went on the rest of that trail to see where it went. And when we went around that corner, that's when we saw that grass that was down. And I have talked about this before, but I've seen weird grass patterns out there before, but I couldn't figure them out. I don't know what it was about them, but they just like intrigued me tremendously. And it was on the Bethany Falls Trail. And there was just this huge area of grass, and they're like these swirls, and I don't know how to explain them, but it just looks like a circle of grass, and all the grass they all swirl. The ladies at Flint Paranormal took a bunch of pictures of them because she was like, okay, this is weird. She's like, we couldn't find the one that you found, but she's like, but these are weird too. So I had already seen weird stuff, but this one was extremely different. I couldn't explain it. And my son had already stepped on the grass. And when he stepped on it, he was trying to find if anybody had made, like tracks with anything like a vehicle or, just anybody, footprints, what we could find. And as I went to go step on it, I told Bo this, I got like the worst feeling in the world. And this lady who talks about crop circles talks about how certain crop circles have like a good vibe in them, or some of them have a bad vibe in them. And instantly when I put my foot down on top of the grass that I took a picture of, I just was like, I don't think I should have done that. And I remember what that lady said about how you shouldn't like step on it and stuff, but I had already stepped on it. So I stood at the top of it and I took a picture of it. And from what I can see, it looks like 2 wings. And then it looks like there's a part where the head is, and then there's like these circles in the grass where it looks like something's punctured it with maybe like a beak or something. And I told my son, I'm always looking at this weird grass, these impressions in the grass. I was like, but this one is beyond anything I've ever seen. And so he sees where the trail keeps going, because like I said, we hadn't been there before. That was our first time. And he saw the little sign where it kept going. And I wanted to take a picture of that area because first time there. So I'm taking a picture of the landscape, and there's this tree over here and all the grass. And I just take 2 pictures real quick. My son's like, come on, quit taking pictures, just enjoy the walk. And then we went about our way, and that's when I took the picture of it. So I had told somebody else, I couldn't hear anything. I don't know if it was because it was going so fast that I didn't hear it. It was really windy out. So the wind, maybe if there was no wind and no sound out, maybe I could have heard it. But I just took the pictures and it was gone. I mean, it flew over me so fast. I probably I don't even think I would have saw it with my naked eye if I could. And then we kept going on that trail. And when we went down that trail, we went into the creek, and the creek was just like overflowing with water. And we played in the creek, and I heard a weird like whisper when we were out there that I couldn't explain. But I, like you said, just tried to rationalize it that, I was just hearing things. And then we kept going on that trail, and that's when we think we saw like a Sasquatch sighting. And this guy in this documentary talks about how they shapeshift, that he watched one shapeshift into a white-tailed deer. Well, I think there's something with turkey, and I don't know what it is, but maybe they shapeshift into those turkey. But we saw 5 turkey. Me and my son saw these 5 turkey, and we were so excited because we would just always see this one turkey. It was just this one turkey, and we called him Jerry, and it was our turkey. And that first time that we saw all 5 of them, my son goes, "Oh my gosh, Mom, it's Jerry. He has a wife and kids. Like, he's got a family." And we were so happy that, Jerry had this family, and they were running away from us. And, we could just kind of see him in the brush, and it was just cool. I'm recording it. And then we keep walking. I'm done recording. We keep walking. And that's when we like literally stopped dead in our tracks, because this big, he said it was brown, but I thought it was black. It just happened so fast. I don't really know what happened, but there was something standing there staring at us. Huge. It was bigger than me, and I'm only like 5'6", but it was probably like 7 feet, maybe. It got down like on all fours, and it runs, and it just barrels through this brush. And when I mean barrel through this brush, like, I was so stunned. I just stood there. My heart's just like beating out of my chest. And I just look at my son, and he starts laughing because he's nervous. But I was just like, what was that? And, like, oh my God, that was huge. And my son's like, holy, yeah, he's like, what in the world? And now looking back at it, I'm like, I wonder if like that was like, like the male, like the dominant person or whatever. And he was making sure we got out of the area, but we weren't getting out of the area. And he was making sure maybe his family got out of the area. Maybe they shapeshifted into turkeys and they hightailed it out of there. That's kind of what I'm thinking now, which is funny because we just kept going. And I told my son, "Are you really sure you want to keep going on this trail? Because I am like terrified that there's whatever went down that hill could come back." And I did. I kept looking over my shoulder. I'm recording the whole time. I'm just like paranoid. I just kept looking back, thinking there was going to be like a black panther or just some huge bears after me, and my son's just having the time of his life. He was like, "I just had my first experience." He was like, "This is the greatest thing ever." We get all the way down to the end of the trail, and we find this huge nest, and Bo thinks it could be the nest of the maybe pterodactyl, whatever. I don't even know what we want to call it, but
possible Thunderbird.
Yeah, Thunderbird. That's why I feel like the storm's important, because I feel like maybe that's why he was out there. Maybe he thought nobody was going to be out there, and he was just chilling in that, that grass area. And I think maybe when we came up, maybe that's when he flew in the tree. We were taking too long, and we were standing there, and I think maybe he just didn't, he knew we were going to walk in that direction, and maybe he just flew off. But it's like, where does he stay? Does he live out there? What is he? I don't know. It's
I mean, there's always Thunderbird legends about him, like chasing storms or like following storms. And I mean, there's always like the magical aspect to him, where people will talk about how they would like fight off bad things and make it so that certain people can inhabit areas. And there's like a whole other side to like Thunderbirds. But if you're looking at it from a more like literal, possibly scientific side, if these things do interact like animals, maybe it has something to do with like a food source. I mean, especially if you found that spot on the ground where this thing is possibly laying. I mean, maybe these things will follow storms around, and then certain things will come up out of the ground after it rains, and they just sit there and pick things off. I mean, it's definitely a possibility.
Oh, wow.
And
Yeah, I didn't think about
going into the
that.
turkeys too with the Sasquatch. I mean, if that was possibly like a Sasquatch, he could have been trying to hunt those turkeys. And if you guys possibly got in between him trying to hunt the turkeys or blew his cover, you know, he may have gotten irritated and just kind of shuffled off and ran off for the time being. Because I've heard of a few different stories of stuff like that where, you know, somebody will come across some type of animal in the woods and then right after they'll have some type of Sasquatch experience and they'll kind of get mad at him and then like shuffle off real quick. And I think it's a matter of getting in the way of hunting.
Sasquatch experience, there's always turkey. And I wrote that in my notebooks of research I just like underlined it, turkey, turkey, turkey. It's just like this. And then the white-tailed deer, that's what I was going to tell you when we saw that nest. There was, I think, 3 or 4 white-tailed deer running up that hill. And my son goes, "Look, Mom, look at the deer." And I was like, and I'm going to be 100%, we've been out there so many times. And I think maybe one time we saw a family of deer crossing the road when we were, because it's like a long drive to get to the end of where the trail is that we like. We had saw that one time and I thought that was so special. And I'm like, man, we go out here all the time and we never see animals ever. And like I said, the first time that we saw that turkey, he had his back towards us and he just stood there forever. And I remember me and my son, he seemed a lot bigger when we first saw him. And then when we got closer to him, we were kind of scared because we couldn't tell what he was. And he just had his back towards us. And eventually we got closer to him and I took some pictures of him. And like I said, we just kept interacting with, it felt like it did feel like the same turkey because my son just kept saying, "Oh my gosh, look, it's Jerry." I'm like, wow, yeah, there he is again. That's kind of weird. And then, you know, like I said, we had that weird monkey talking to us in the bushes.
Hold that thought. We'll be right back. And we are back. So let's hop right in.
I haven't talked about this because I don't, like I told Bo, I have to process things before I talk about them. But after we had those monkey sounds in the woods, we tried so hard. I went up to the bushes. I tried to see if I could see anything, if I could find anything. And I couldn't. And we kept trying to get it to make the noises again because when I try to record it, it stopped. It wouldn't do it. And so I told the kids, you know, we should probably go. We should leave. And as we're leaving, my son, and I've been hearing a lot of people say it's called mind speak, but that's kind of what my son was saying. He said, it's like they're implanting thoughts in my head. And he said, they told me that they like you. And they said, "Thank you for coming, Alex." And my daughter goes, "They know your name?" And I was like, well, I mean, I am kind of weird and I do talk to them. There was like this documentary I watched and this lady said, some guy at a seminar like told all these people that they could talk to Sasquatch. And so she went back to her hotel that night and she like sent out this message to all the Sasquatch apologizing to the Sasquatch community, basically saying like, "I'm so sorry that this guy told all these people that they can talk to you because you're probably going to be getting a lot of weird messages now from all these people, you know." And so I thought, well, that's kind of interesting if we could do that. And so I would just say little weird random things or, you know, when we were out there and right before we had that experience with the turkey and then thinking that we saw the Sasquatch, I was meditating in that creek like hardcore. And I was trying not to close my eyes too much because I have paranoia from missing 411 and everybody going missing in the woods. But I was trying my best to like meditate and just be open. And like I said, I got my clothes wet. I had my socks and shoes off. Like we were just having a good time in the creek. And I think you're right. I think either we ran up on him. I don't know. It felt like that they were watching us watch the turkey for sure.
They might even watch you every time that you come in if they know your name. I mean, they could have even caught that in partial conversation and with you talking to your son and stuff too. I mean, who knows, or anybody else you may have been out there with.
I talk about this all the time, but we have this saying where it's what would Sasquatch do? Like we say that all the time. We'll be out there and we'll be talking about something that we do. And Xavier was like, "What do you think Sasquatch would do?" I'm like, "I don't know." And then we'll talk about it, you know, we'll like come up with all these theories and these funny things. So yeah, I mean, I think that's like, it's this whole like collective consciousness thing of like, we're all one, we're all together. So it makes sense, you know? So I I've been trying to do this for a long time, and not even just with like that. Like that's just been more recently that I've been doing that, and I don't really like talking about that because people probably think I'm really crazy. But I used to do that before I would go into abandoned buildings that I did not have permission to go into. I would just kind of, and I would tell people, like sometimes I would go with people who didn't really know me, and I would walk into a place and I'm like, okay, I'm going to say something, and just, don't take this weird, but I have to say something before we walk in here. And, some people would look at me weird, but I would just be like, I'm just here to take pictures. I'm not here to destroy your property. I just want to explore and, take pictures. We're not here to disturb you or bother you or, take anything. I've had a really bad experience with taking something from a place. I completely regretted, extremely bad, because it followed me for a very long time. So that's just something that I don't do, and I don't recommend anybody doing, especially if they're exploring. And
I've made my own mistakes with that, as a lot of the listeners have known from my earlier stories, but
it's not a good time. And the ladies at Flint Paranormal, I kind of told them a little bit about that story, and it's really crazy because I kind of want to find the dress again because I know where I took it, and not that I want to have it, but I thought, Zach Bagans might be interested in something like that, that he would want to have like at his place. But I
mean, even just to see if it's still there, just for the sake of knowing, or if somebody else may have snatched it and took it. They're dealing with their own problems now. Who knows?
That's the crazy part. And everyone always tells me you have to like stop feeling bad about it. And maybe I will stop feeling bad about it one day. And it probably was nothing to do with me. It probably was nothing to do with the dress, but it's just the fact that it happened, and it made me really upset because I didn't know what to do with it. And then I felt like I put it on somebody else that didn't really deserve that, if that makes sense. It was a historical society that I took it to. And they had like a whole room full of dresses that were from the same area. So I just thought, okay, well, if there's more creepy dresses, maybe it could get along with the other creepy dresses. But yeah, that's a pretty crazy story. There was like a abandoned home in our town, and it was right across from this airport, and it had been abandoned since 1969. So very long time. And a construction or a contractor bought it. He was just going to demolition the whole entire place. It had a cistern well, open cistern well. So they said that they had to tear it down and like rebuild because it was unsafe. So I messaged him and was like, hey, dude, you let people in there to like take pictures so that, people can see, because everybody wants to know what's inside that house. It's been sitting there abandoned forever. And he ended up letting people come in, told people that they could buy stuff at garage sale price, which I was kind of like, what?
Yeah,
like,
let's just spread out the haunted items.
Dude, I feel bad because these people took like wood banisters. They had like really good wood in there or something. So like people took so many pieces of this house, and I know I probably took the most messed up piece. It was calling me, just like screaming at me in this closet. And I was just like, oh, wow, that's cool. I think I'm going to take that. And, I'm going to buy it with all these other things that I got. And it ended up being the worst mistake I ever made. The dress is actually super creepy. The whole pattern of the dress is a picture, and it's just multiple of the same picture, but it's a picture of a mom and a daughter, and they're holding, they have like briefcases and all their belongings, and the little girl's crying and the mom's upset, and the dad is driving away in a car and like leaving them in the dust.
Who's just like, yeah, let's make a dress of that print. That is perfect. This is just the most wholesome dress I could possibly make.
It gets even better. All the Facebook comments from all the pictures that I took of everyone trying to figure out this mystery. All these people kept saying that the mom and the dad and the daughter that lived there, that either the father was pushed down the cistern well or he fell down the cistern well. No one really could ever understand.
Or pushed by something non-physical.
Yes. And so I thought, okay, well, if my husband left us, he fell down the cistern well and he left us, did this lady make this dress pattern and like parade her daughter around and show all of the town? Like, my husband left us and this is a dress I made for it. Like,
That's an interesting way to find a new man.
Really disturbing, I think. I'll have to, I don't have it saved on my computer right now, but I'll have to send that to you just so that you can see it. I showed it to those ladies at Flint Paranormal and they're like, that was a dress pattern? And I was like, look, and I showed her the big picture of it. I was like, it was the whole dress. She was like, okay, that's weird.
I'll have to include that in the cover art if you could send me a picture of that.
Oh, please. Yes, it is.
I'll include that and the Thunderbird pictures or pterodactyl, whatever it happens to be. I'll make sure I include all of them in the picture.
Little collage. But so this dress, I brought it home. I didn't really think about it. My brain kind of, if I don't see something, it's out of my head. And I'd actually had put it underneath some clothes, and it was in a bag, and I had been walking on it for a few days, unbeknownst to me. So I had this dream where I'm in the historical society, and this is before I knew that I was going to take it there, but I knew where I was. I was inside the historical society, and this dress is hanging on the back hook of the bathroom door, and I'm in the bathroom, and it's not the same dress, but I know when I wake up that it's the dress, but it's this big white dress, and the dress comes up off the hook and it comes at me and it starts like attacking me. And I wake up and I'm freaking out and I'm like, dude, where is that dress? And then I realized I had been stepping on it and I felt like I'd been like disrespecting the dress and that, wasn't happy.
It was trying to get back to you in your nightmares.
It was trying to tell me like, you took this and, now you're disrespecting it and you should have just left it where it was. So then I started seeing these shadows in our house. It just got really weird. And I messaged my friend and I was like, dude, I don't know, what I did. And he was like, you took something? And I'm like, well, the guy said I could buy it. And he was like, no, still not okay. I was like, dang it. But they had already tore down the house. So he's like, well, you can't take it back. So you're going to have to figure out what to do with it.
Try to bury it on the property. I mean, that's probably like the closest option you could get.
That's kind of what he said, but he was like, you can't be out there in the middle of your town, like digging a hole in this man's property to put a weird ass dress. I'm like,
in the middle of the night, the cops show up and he's like, I'm just burying a dress. They're like, what's in the dress, ma'am?
He's been having a lot of problems and this is going to help. Please just let me be.
It's just a dress. I promise. There's nothing in here.
It was so bad. So I thought, okay, I'd been to this historical society and it's like over 50 rooms and they have over 100,000 artifacts. There's like a whole room full of arrowheads that are collected from that area of where I live, and like made into art, all kinds of World War II stuff. And just like, every single room is different and it's really neat place. But like I said, there's this dress room and I thought, okay, that's like the best place for me to take this thing, and the lady who worked there, she lived there full time. Like she had a room inside this house because it was this huge farmhouse from a long time ago. And it was in a Y shape, but she lived in one of the rooms. And that day that I took the dress there, she wasn't there or wasn't answering. And so I just left it on the door with a few other things. But I was just like, this is probably the best place for this. And then literally 3 months later, that lady was only 42 years old and she passed away there. And she always would tell me, like, I don't understand why all these people come here to do these ghost things. And they're staying the night and they're investigating. She was like, there's nothing, about this place that I just don't get it. And I would tell her, I'm like, you have over 100,000 artifacts from people's lives, probably stuff that people really cared about. And this whole entire house is filled with all their stuff. There's got to be something here. And she's just like, I just don't get it. I just don't get it. And it always just made me so upset because like they said that, they couldn't really tell how she died, but she just passed away in her sleep one night. And I always blame myself that I should have never taken that dress because maybe she was like the one who picked it up, the one that put it in the room, the one that, maybe I opened that door for her. I don't know. That was a really hard one for me to process. And that's kind of why I stopped exploring places and doing that as much or being very more cautious about that. Because people would be like, you don't post pictures anymore. You're not going to abandoned places anymore. And it's like, well, I've had a lot of experiences. And that's just one of many. But that one was unexplainable because I had my own experiences with it, and I know how strongly she disbelieved in that. And it was almost like her test or something that, you don't believe in ghosts. Well, here you go. Here's a really good one.
See, the paranormal too, it's one of those things that it's like, you can mess with it a little bit. You're interested in it, but that's the type of stuff that like follows you home. People have had some weird Sasquatch and cryptid experiences and like extraterrestrial experiences, but the paranormal stuff, it's like that invisible enemy. So it's like, if there's a Squatch, you can see the Squatch typically, but the paranormal stuff, you'll bring something home, you won't even notice anything for a couple weeks. Then all of a sudden, every single time you walk in your front room, there's this dark shadow that sits in the corner. And when you double back, then it's gone. Like, that's what got me was I would see a shadow and it would go from like room to room, up and down the stairs. And then like every 3 days to me seeing it, my son would see it, and he was younger and he didn't know about anything that was going on. And my husband at the time, he didn't believe in any of that stuff. He just was not a believer in any of that. And the moment that made him believe was when I still had the dress, and what we kind of came to figure out was whatever was upstairs was being kept upstairs by whatever was downstairs, because whoever was downstairs kept trying to come up and down the stairs, it seemed like. And just one day I just said, you know what, Adam, I just really think that we should sage this place. And when I said those exact words, this lady started singing from the basement. And I turned and I looked at Adam and I said, I know you heard that. And he looked at me, and we lived out in the middle of nowhere. And he was like, dude, he goes, my grandma had a sewing room downstairs. And he goes, and she used to always like sing different songs like Amazing Grace and stuff like that. And he was like, I swear to you, that was my grandma. And I was like, that was probably your grandma telling me, yes, please sage the house to get whatever is in here out. I mean, going into residual hauntings too, I've thrown this idea a few times, and I'm glad that this has come up a lot recently, that everybody, when they think about residual hauntings, they think of traumatic experiences, and that's what ends up being the thing that like sticks through time. That's just this replaying event. But on the other side of it, I feel like really, really exciting or really happy events can do the same thing. Because when it comes to like the saloon music, for example, this is usually the one that I usually throw, but like saloon music, and they'll hear like people talking and like clinking of glasses and stuff like that. It's not anything traumatic that happened there. I just think that so many people had a good time there that ended up becoming a residual thing. And I feel like the same can be said for, somebody that used to love sewing in their basement and they love singing songs. There's not anything dark or evil that happened there. Like, it was just such a
lot of people say it's demons every single time, but it's like, can a kid just have a good time?
That's what I'm saying too.
What if that kid like died from cancer and them playing with a ball or singing or laughing or whatever it may be was like the only good times that they had like in this life, you know what I mean?
I mean, even if it's an intelligent haunting too, not even something residual, because obviously the residual stuff, it's not like there's like that soul connected to it. But when people have these experiences, they always want to say are demons. Like, I don't think the demon experiences are as often as people like to think that they are. But when people have these child experiences, I mean, of course, it can go one of two ways, because if something is really dark, it's going to try to take that innocent figure to try to get you to let your guard down so that it can do whatever it's trying to do. But on the other side of it, if a child passes away from something traumatic, such as they're in like one of these hospitals or something, for example, and they died from like, say, tuberculosis or something, and they're in that in-between and they have nowhere to go and they don't know what to do, it's almost like you're leaving a kid alone by themselves. Like, what are they going to do? They're going to try to play with balls. They're going to try to like grab adults' hands. Like, they're going to try to interact. But like, imagine being a child on that other side that has no understanding of the paranormal. And then you're just there yourself and you're just stuck and you're trying to interact with these people. You're trying to like ask for help, but you don't have a means of doing it and you don't understand why. Like, I feel like there's a lot of child experiences that are just that. They're like child spirits, but everybody, again, wants to instantly assume it's demonic because that seems to be the trope that most demonic things will take, is that destroying innocence.
All the children are demons. That's what I've learned from all these documentaries.
Anything that's evil that you can slap a title on, we can just call it a demon. That's usually how it goes.
That's the go-to. Like, just get a stamp for everything and just stamp all demons. I'm like, wow. I mean, I get it, and there's a lot of people that, have bad experiences, but I didn't realize how common, like that is the most common thing that people say aliens are demons. I just really didn't know it was like that super deep because I've always loved aliens.
Hold that thought. We'll be right back. And we are back. So let's hop right in. I mean, there's the Collins Elite. Their whole ideology was basically that these things have been the demons from biblical times that are just translating into now. And they're like this group that dives into it from like that aspect. Like that was, I feel like, where it came back to the forefront again, where everybody was talking about the whole connection between these things.
So much. I'm just listening to all these things at work because I just listen to it nonstop. I just find every documentary I can. And even the not so good ones. Like I weed through a lot of them, but I just want to hear, I mean, I hear the craziest stuff and it makes me think about things, or it'll make me come up with another idea or, another something that I can use for my own research. But there's some pretty crazy people out there. I will say that. But for the most part, I mean, I feel like nobody ever has the same experience and we're all like putting this puzzle together. And it's pretty interesting because the more I research, it's not even necessarily the more questions I have, but the more reassurance I get from my own experiences. Because if people are talking about their experiences, that helps other people process theirs. Because someone said something about like, if a tall white were to like walk up to you and you're standing next to someone, you're going to reassure yourself by asking the person next to you, do you see what I'm seeing? Like you base your reality off of other people's perception of their reality. So sharing stories is like so important because it'll help others and it'll help other people maybe want to tell their story too.
I mean, even on the other side, I always throw it too, that it helps document the research. Because I feel like there's been a long period of time where it was only certain cases that people were talking about and they were documenting them in books and stuff. But now, thanks to like the age of podcasting, the internet and everything, even people that are just local, small people that never want to share their experience in the first place, they don't want to be named, have that opportunity to do it. Where in the past, it was only like if some off-the-wall writer came into your town and they were like collecting these stories and stuff. Like, think about how many paranormal, cryptid, Sasquatch, UFO stories have just been lost through time by people who have never told the story because they didn't want to get just destroyed for telling their story. Because, I mean, 70s, 80s, 90s, all these people, they've been like ridiculed for this. And it isn't until relatively recently in the right community, because if you go into normal society and tell people this kind of stuff, they're going to look at you funny, but there's actually a community of people that have a way of documenting this stuff, so the research can actually progress at this point a little bit better than it has in the past. And that's why it seems like we're getting a little bit farther now than we have. It's like a bigger step in the last few years than it's been in the last like 4 or 5 decades, just because of the opportunities that are arising, and people are all starting to admit that they have some type of paranormal experience. Because even people that don't want to be believers, you'll get them into the right situation, be talking to them, and you'll be like, hey, have you ever had just like an unexplained experience? And then they'll tell you it, and then you'll realize that it follows these common tropes of like a paranormal experience, and it's coming from somebody that has no familiarity with it to begin with. So it's just like, it's weird. Everybody has some type of weird paranormal experience. It's just the matter of actually dissecting it or just writing it off and saying that it was this, and then never thinking about it again.
I completely agree. I'm glad that you said that, because that's a lot of the reason why I post all the reels that I post, because there's so many documentaries that were made a long time ago that people don't even know exist. And I just take little clips of those and I post them, with where you can watch them, so that people can see that this has been going on and people have been documenting this. They were just unaware of it because the society that wasn't, acceptable, and you were a kook and crazy if you ever thought that, any of those went together with science or religion or, any of those things. So
I mean, we've kind of had this
point of sharing it
up and down, where it was like everybody was very spiritual for a long time. And then we went into the science aspect of things, where nobody wanted to believe in anything that seemed woo-woo because they were too scientific. And now it seems like we're getting to this center point where we're kind of mixing spirituality with science and realizing that there is a connecting tie between them. And we're just at that breaking point of actually understanding that there is possibly a scientific way of understanding this weird phenomenon. And who knows where we're going to end up going with it in the future, because I feel like we're just at like the base starting point of it now. We're starting to understand that you can connect these things.
Like droplets of the ocean, basically.
Exactly. And I mean, I know I've thrown this a million times on the show, but it's just a matter of understanding. And then something goes from occult to science. Like you got alchemy that turned into chemistry. I think that a lot of the occult concepts we talk about with like ritualistic things that like celebrities are doing, like it's like mass manipulation. And I think that all that is a master understanding of psychology. And it's just kind of put under like a different name because they just know how to subconsciously trick people's minds into believing or seeing certain things. So I feel like a lot of these like occult weird things, it's just a matter of understanding. And then you slowly start to realize that they are sciences or scientists that we yet to have a name for.
Yeah. What is it? Some guy said something about there's no like paranormal. It's just like bridging the gaps of our knowledge to like understand what is normal, because we don't have any idea what normal actually really is.
And we try to write things off regardless. I mean, how many times have you heard the trope of like, oh, it's swamp gas for all these orbs and everything like that, and people just never think about it again? That's just what it is to most people. Or it's just, oh, a reflection of light. It's just this, it's just that. And they just want to put a name on something so easy that I don't feel like they actually put as much practical time into actually trying to prove it as much as they just like slapping a theory on it, and then people forgetting the fact that they dropped the word theory on there.
For sure. Like the first winged creature that I got, I mean, I looked up every single thing that someone said that it could possibly be. I mean, if someone said it looked like a plunger, I was probably going to look up plunger just to make sure.
Flying a plunger.
I was just like, people are like, that's a man in a wingsuit. That's a flying squirrel. Isn't that lady, like, doesn't she know what a flying squirrel looks like? Or that's a bug, or, whatever it was. It was just, at first it was frustrating, but then I was like, you know what? There's so much evidence out there for one, like, and that's probably why people don't care as much. Like, I was so excited. I thought everyone was going to care. Not that nobody cared, but it just like, it was so neat that I got something that I've like dreamed about getting, and I can't figure it out. And it's just made me want to keep going even more. And this is probably how it starts for most people. They get something like this and they get this itch, and then it's just, they can't stop. And then they just keep going and going and going. And for the rest of my life, I probably will be, every time I see something in the sky, like no joke, I am looking at the sky because I'm just like, I want to actually see it. I didn't get to see it with my own eyes. And I know there's been so many reports in Missouri since like the early 1800s of birds like this picking up school kids in the schoolyard and like picking them up and dropping them. That's been reported multiple times in Missouri. And like you said, they're called thunderbirds, and that's what they used to call them. And I've been like I was fascinated with like Dogman and then these thunderbirds. And I just think the fact that I even captured one or possibly two, I don't know what the other one is. The other one just looks extremely disturbing. I can't even describe that one. The wings are just so abnormally long that I don't know what it would even be, to be honest. I
mean, it could honestly be the same thing. It just could have been in the first video that you'd shown me before we started. It could have been gliding where it kind of had its wings in. And the second one you saw actually had its wings outstretched. And I mean, at least for this Thunderbird stuff, I mean, people have like the magical connotation with them hearing the name Thunderbird, but Thunderbirds, I mean, a giant bird living somewhere deep in the woods, like it doesn't sound as ridiculous if you really break it down, because they can be ambush predators. They can pick up a bunch of small prey. Birds don't need to eat that ridiculous of an amount. So, I mean, like, if you add the magical principle to it, then again, people, you kind of get lost with that. But if you're looking at it from a practical stance, I mean, there could definitely be some on the verge of being extinct giant birds that still are existing somewhere, or just some remnants that are left. And it's just once in a while, people get that lucky chance where they actually get to see some of these things.
I think you're right. Yeah, I'm just looking at them again because I'm like,
and just out of curiosity, while you're bringing these pictures up too, you mentioned that clearing spot right before you actually took these pictures. Just kind of, I know that it's kind of hard to measure stuff just out of quick sight and stuff, but do you have like a rough idea about how big of a flattened area you think this may have been?
So, where's that picture? The way I described it is like, because I'm standing at the bottom of it. Oh, shoot, did I not? Sorry.
Oh, no, you're good.
I found it. But it was about this, like, it's about my size, if not a little bit bigger. And the wings were huge. That's just all I remember is like how big the wings actually were.
Because I mean, if it was about your size, most of the stories that I've heard about like people getting picked up by thunderbirds, it's usually really small kids, and they usually don't get carried that far before the bird ends up dropping them or letting them down.
Yes.
So I mean, if you have a bird that's about the size of an adult person, yeah, maybe they can get a little bit of leverage to pick up a kid for a little bit. But again, it would fit the motif of them not actually being able to fly off with them. I mean, maybe the thunderbirds that the natives spoke about may have been way bigger, and just through the years of them breeding and possibly getting smaller to fit a niche, now they're not big enough to actually lift up an adult person, but they still may have that hunting instinct where they want to pick up small kids, and then they realize that they can after they kind of get themselves in the situation, you know?
Right? I completely agree. Okay, so this picture, you can see at the bottom where my foot is. Like barely, it's like my little yellow foot. But if I were to have like laid down, like my head would probably have been up at the top part where that grass is, but the wings, you see where the wings are at the top?
It seems like a very weird pattern if somebody was going to throw the idea of like wind at it, because I know wind will kind of brush grass a certain way, but not in that pattern where there's like that center spot and then the brush out on the two sides like that.
I don't know if this is the video, because I was trying to see if we could. Oh, this is a different. It'll probably show you the turkey. I also, in this whole video, and it's really hard to see, but I did get, it looked like a UAP that flies by, and then this like weird scorpion thing. But when the video comes back down, you'll see the turkey right before. Me and my daughter go on this trail. That every time I capture these things, it's always accidental. There's the turkey.
Like they're just there, like nonchalant.
Yeah, and it's funny because we went out there to. Some guy said that Sasquatch likes cherry Pez, and we went out there to leave them some Smarties, and I think it's funny now that those 4 turkey were like waiting for us right before we went on the trail to go leave those. I'm telling you, every time that we do something, it's like the turkey they're always there.
Hey, maybe it has something to do with the underground stuff they're doing. I mean, maybe they're making some form of like a mini hydrogen particle collider or something like that, and they got some weird skinwalker activity above, and they just are coming in the form of turkeys.
Dude, I have no idea. And I was telling that lady at Flint Paranormal about, she's like, wait, what do you mean there's an underground quarry? And I was like, oh yeah, I forgot to tell you about that. And I'm telling her that, and she's like, do you think that maybe that's where that footprint came from? And like her kind of theory was, which I thought it was interesting, but so at this park, and I don't know how people determine for like for conservation parks, like how it works, like for if people can camp at a certain park or if you can't park. Like, I don't know how that works or how like that's set up, but at Burr Oak Woods, you are not allowed to bring any pets. You are only allowed to have a service dog on the trail. Any other pets are not allowed. There's no camping. The gates close at a certain time and it's like locked up, and then like nobody's allowed until they open the gates at 7 a.m. So like the park is only for daytime hours. And like I said, my kids are like, well, why aren't dogs allowed on the trails? And I'm like, well, if there was stuff out there and these people did know that there's things out here like maybe Sasquatch or weird people or, whatever, dogs who aren't trained to listen to people and to follow the person that they are supposed to follow, those animals will go off the tracks and maybe find stuff they're not supposed to or whatnot. And I kind of thought about that. I was like, that could be a possibility. Why? And then the lady's like, what if there's like these hominoids or something and they're they're being released like at night from the underground quarry, and they get to run around out at Burr Oak Woods at nighttime. And, you know, that was like their time to get out. And I was like sitting there like thinking like, please don't give me any more because I don't need help in that department.
I mean, even on the other side, if you have a dog that's randomly peeing everywhere, they might want to cut down on that a little bit because there might be animals and beings that might get, you know, irritated with their territories.
Like, I thought I found Sasquatch poop, which I don't know if it was, but from what I've heard, you're not supposed to take biologicals home, nothing from Sasquatch, because when you do, it's not good, apparently. Not good things happen to people who take home things that are from Sasquatch. I did not know that. It's kind of like me taking stuff home from an abandoned building.
That is a really long, skinny foot, by the way. Just a side note.
Yeah. Very super flat, too. There's no arch whatsoever. And we don't know where the toes went.
I mean, that could have been an old track, too, because it looks like there's brush and stuff in it. It looks like the dirt's like kind of cracked within the heel and everything, too. I mean, who knows how old that footprint could have been. It could have been weathered a lot more, too. I mean, could have been a little bit wider at some point, and then it kind of started to cave in a little bit. I mean,
it was, I will tell you this, it was super deep. And then I went back that's when we saw the Thunderbird, and it was still there. Because I was like, I got a picture of it like this, but then I was like, I want to get another picture of it. And then,
I mean, full of water too, it'll get rid of like definition in the foot, and it'll just kind of even out the bottom of it, where if there was a mid-tarsal break, you may not be able to see it after it rains a couple times.
I wish I had a different angle of it, but you can see like where that big toe went down in it, and you see that mud that's right next to it. That was super, like, it was like that deep. It was weirdly deep. And my daughter, when she noticed it, when we took this picture, she said, it looks like the person was running, and she was like, but where's their other foot? And I was like, oh, yeah. And I was just so intrigued by the footprint that I was like, I didn't even think about looking for others, you know? And then she couldn't find one. And then she just kept going, well, where'd they go? Like, where's their other feet? And so that was just weird. And so then, like I said, we came back the next day to go on the trail, and it was still there, and it looked like this. And then I reported the winged creature to the nature center. They told me it was, by how large the creature was, that it was most likely a turkey vulture. I told them that I know what turkey vultures look like, and that was definitely not a turkey vulture, and that I'd be happy to come in and show them the live photos that I took. So then I went back the next day after reporting it. They had taken their little ATVs out there and ran over the footprint, and completely went all around that area where I had.
Maybe purposely.
They did, because I sent them the picture. They knew exactly where I was because I had sent them the pictures of it. And they knew by the picture that I took of the area, like this picture, because I sent them the video. And when I sent them the video of this, that's how they knew, because it's like, it's hard to describe, but you can pretty much tell. Like, that's how fast it went. But they could tell by this area, like, they knew exactly where I was at.
It looks like it has its wings in and it's gliding, by the way, because I know we mentioned earlier about the one with the wider wingspan. That one in that video looks like it's quick gliding, like it might have its wings to the side. Maybe that's why it doesn't look so wide.
And then this one, I know it's kind of hard, and I'm sorry. I try to move because of the because it's a live photo. I just wanted to try to see if I could capture it, in the moment moving. So I did this a lot. But like I've said before, it starts from behind me, in the tree brush behind me, which you can't see. And within a matter of 2 to 3 seconds, it's literally gone.
Even if that was somebody in a flight suit, I don't think they'd be moving that fast.
Dude, no way. Absolutely no way. It was...
Plus, where would they be starting from, too? That's another good point.
Yeah.
Somebody isn't climbing a tree and jumping off a tree in a flight suit. That don't work like that. We will be right back after this brief commercial break, so stay tuned. Hey guys, I know nobody really wants to listen to ad breaks on podcasts, so instead of actually listening to those, why don't you go and check out some of the sponsors and affiliate links for the show instead. Number one, you guys can go and check out I Know Squatch for all of your squatchy gear needs, or you guys can check out Cryptoteology for all of your wearable cryptid favorites, or you guys can check out Snarly Yow for a fantastic natural line of beard oil, beard balm, beard shampoo, and body wash, all with an enticing woodsy aroma of smoky cedar with a hint of mint. And he also puts on a lot of fantastic events around the West Virginia area. So if you guys are in that area, make sure you guys go and check it out and see what kind of events he's putting on, because he definitely brings in an awesome group of people. And you guys can go and check out Big Ape Threads for all of their Bigfoot and cryptid related designs. And going into the affiliate links, you guys can always go and check out the newest sponsor to the show, Oregon-ite, specializing in scale model pyramid replicas, EMF protection devices, and much more. And if you guys find any pieces that you guys want to scoop for yourself, you guys can use code OMM for 10% off at checkout. And to all the paranormal investigators out there, you guys can go and check out the Chattergeist. It is the all-in-one paranormal investigating device. My absolute favorite. I use it every single time I go out. And if you guys have any technical questions about it, you guys can always go and hit up Barry over there in Dimension Devices on Instagram. He's the guy that programmed and developed it, so he'll be able to answer any of your guys' technical questions for it. And if you use the affiliate link, you guys will receive 10% off at checkout. And just a heads up, the company is based in the UK, so when you check it out on the website, it will be in pounds. But when you guys use PayPal, it will convert over. So don't think that you guys can't scoop one just because you don't live in the UK. And don't forget to check out the affiliate link for Sticker Mule to receive a $10 credit towards your first purchase. Over there, you can get a bunch of stickers printed, t-shirts, posters, all that kind of stuff. So if you guys are another podcast and you guys are looking for good quality stuff in order to print your logos on, Sticker Mule is definitely the place for you. And more information on all of those, of course, is available down in the show description. Let's quickly run through some commercials and get back into the show. And we are back, so let's hop right in.
But like this picture, I just thought like it, and that's super far away.
I mean, you can see the wings down. Again, if it's a flight suit, you're not doing that bow pattern. You're kind of like straight out or tucked in.
And then the weird part about this one, so that's its wings like flapping. Where's the one where it's together? The one where it's together just creeps me out because it just doesn't look normal. It looks just so strange. Hopefully I have it. Yeah, I would like anybody's help or anybody who knows anything. I know, I think it's Justin from Cryptids of the Corn. Him and Tony were like looking at my pictures and stuff, and they, he noticed like, the webbing and like the coned head and stuff, and but nobody can give me any answers, and it's like, it's crazy. I like that shot of it too.
Oh, it's like the straight, almost like a triangle pattern where you can see the tip and then the wings back.
Isn't that weird?
Didn't you have one that was a little bit closer up where you can kind of see a little bit of definition in it too?
Yes. That you can see where the webbing is thinner and where like the light's coming through the webbing better. And everyone says that it doesn't have a tail, and I could like see that, but I know there's pictures of like pterodactyls and stuff. Like it's hard to see in this picture, but at the in between the two little like pointy legs, it looks like there could be like a rope tail, like a very like a rat tail kind of, you know what I'm saying? I don't know, but there appears to be something that you could kind of see, and I don't know what it is, but yeah, I thought that was interesting because everyone keeps saying it doesn't have a tail, but I can see something. I don't, like I said, I don't know 100% sure what it is, but it is interesting. If I have any more angles of it.
I mean, just to throw something in there, because it's not that far off, you're in Missouri capturing this, and I don't know if you're familiar with the Van Meter Visitor, but it was this weird experience where it flew out of this mine, and people basically claimed that it was like a pterodactyl. So, I mean, that's only a state up from you guys, and there was already a, quote, pterodactyl sighting.
Look at it in that picture. It looks like a moth.
I mean, if you're looking at it from that angle too, I mean, there's also definitely the possibility of like flying hominids, but because that would also, you can kind of see the like leg pattern in it possibly.
There's that lady, Flint Paranormal told me to get a hold of this lady named Margie Kay, and she wrote a book on, it's called Alien Demons or something like that, but it's winged, maybe it's Winged Demons. I don't know what it was, but that's kind of what the premise of her book is like they're human,
I mean, you kind of have a weird spot because you're in between two states with two different types of sightings. I mean, if you're in Missouri, to the north, you got Iowa, which again has the Van Meter visitor. And to your east, you have Illinois, which is where a lot of the flying hominid sightings come out of, because there's the whole like Chicago Mothman stuff. And I know it's on the other side of the state, but the state, right, Illinois, is scattered with flying hominid sightings. So it's kind of a weird way. You don't know which way to go because you border both states that both have weird aerial cryptid sightings.
And we're mostly known for Momo. We're mostly known for Sasquatch, not for, I mean, people do know about the winged creatures, but if you ask somebody what our cryptid is, most people would say either probably Loch Ness Monster or Sasquatch. And people call it Momo here. But
just out of curiosity too, Kansas City, that's like the complete west side of the state, correct?
Yes, correct.
Okay, so you're not like closer to Illinois or Iowa necessarily. You kind of look like, well, you're probably closer to Illinois than you are Iowa because that's more northern Missouri for Kansas City. But again, you're kind of in a weird spot where it's like you're far enough where you don't know which direction to go into with the flying hominids or the pterodactyl or even the Thunderbird stuff. I mean, there's Thunderbird stuff from Illinois, from Kansas, all those kind of states. You kind of live in like a center point where there's a lot of different flying cryptid sightings.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, for sure. I agree. Yeah, I don't know what, and that's why I want to share this so that maybe people can, if anybody else has seen something like this, I think that would be super cool. Like I just said, I've been trying to reach out to people who've been writing books about this stuff because it would be cool for them to actually see someone's evidence of something that they've been writing about and maybe they've never seen before or have ever had the chance to maybe see real, possible real evidence. And that's what I feel like it is.
Are you familiar with Phantoms and Monsters?
I don't think so. Is that a podcast?
So there's a man named Lon Strickler. He's been running it since 2005. It's like a blog, and he also does a podcast now too. But he's been taking in all these different sightings from like all over the world, and he has this massive database of all of these different weird off-the-wall sightings and stuff. And he actually has Phantoms and Monsters 40 research team, and I'm one of the 40 researchers for Michigan/Illinois. But he might be another awesome person to be able to contact and share these photos with, because he specifically has been diving into the Chicago Mothman and flying hominid stuff for a hot minute now. So some of that research might actually connect in with that. So if you're looking for more people to possibly share this idea with, I would definitely contact Lon Strickler from Phantoms and Monsters, because he might even have other reports from your state of weird stuff like this.
That's amazing. I would absolutely love that. I just got a Mothman tattoo on last Thursday, so I think I should definitely reach out to him.
Oh, yeah. I mean, even just submit the sighting, too. Tell him Shayn sent you. And, yeah, he probably would love to reshare your story on the blog itself. And from there, you might even have more people that get snagged in and say, hey, I saw something similar to this in this area, too. Because he's had people trafficking his blog since, again, 2005. He has a massive amount of people that see it regularly. So even just posting your story on there, you might be surprised at what pops up.
Yeah, that would be great. Thank you so much for suggesting that.
I'll have to make sure I send you the link afterwards. Like I said, there's the website, and then you can also contact him through Instagram and stuff. But I know he has an email specifically for it. But Facebook's the ones he's the most active on. And if you tell him, again, that I sent you, I don't know how many reports he gets in a day. I know he takes in a lot of reports. But that'll probably kind of flag it where he'll make sure he checks it first. And hopefully it'll get posted back up there to hopefully bring some more people in with hopefully similar sightings.
Perfect. Yeah, I would love to hear other people's experiences, especially in my area, because the lady at the nature center was like laughed at me kind of and was like, we've never had anyone say there was monkey sounds in our park. And I'm like, well, if I'm the first person, then that's pretty cool.
I think he has some investigators in Missouri too. So he may even have somebody that might be able to come out and check this area out with you too.
Oh, wow. Cool. Yeah, that would be awesome. That's what those ladies did at Flint Paranormal. And I was so appreciative because they drove a couple hours from Kansas just to come out and meet me and interview me. It was super cool.
He's got the team, so he's got people located in different states. So he tries to make it so that there's hopefully somebody somewhat close to everybody. Oh. So if I'm not mistaken, I think that Carter Bouchard may cover Missouri. And he particularly usually dives into Sasquatch, but he dives into the weird woo-woo side of Sasquatch. So he might be the perfect researcher to come up there and check it out with you.
Yeah, I have all the cryptids they need on the ground and in the air. So.
And I'm going to have to make sure that when I push this episode out too, like I said, I'll include all these pictures in the cover art, and I'll make sure I give your contact information down below, your Instagram, whatever, and maybe I'll even bring in some more from my end too, hopefully.
Perfect. Well, thank you. No, this has been super fun. I enjoy, like I said, sharing this stuff with people who are also interested in this. And it's been, I mean, I've been doing my own research, but it seems like when you just go out and enjoy yourself, stuff finds you instead of you finding it. So
that's how it goes with a lot of Squatch and stuff too. It's like you go out and enjoy the woods, and if you're lucky, you just might catch a Squatch. But more often than not, you have better luck when you're looking, but not overly looking. Like most people that have really good experiences, they'll do this thing where they'll like sit around a campfire and they'll just kind of interact normally, and in turn they end up getting curious and they end up getting stuff that comes in, and they'll watch them through thermo and stuff, versus like the people that are going out and tree knocking and whooping and stuff. I feel like the people that sit and wait end up having better results. Like Jay from Finding Jay, he does a couple documentaries. He's a really fantastic researcher from Wisconsin, and his whole method is that he goes out with like red lights and stuff, and he'll just kind of sit in spots for a while and stuff, and you know, he'll get lucky and stuff will like end up coming in just out of curiosity. And the fact that he's not using a white light, he's using a red light, seems to not be, it's not like a big red blinker on your forehead, you know, like it's a little bit more subtle. So you have more of a chance of something possibly walking up on you on accident too.
I heard a really cool story the other day about this lady. She had a drum making business kind of thing where people could go out to her property and make drums and learn how to make them. And this guy had heard that she had Sasquatch on her property, and he was like, you know, I'll pay the fee to make the drum, but I don't want to make a drum. I just want to drive around on your property. And she's like, that's fine, you know? So he said he did this for like 2 days. He drove around and got nothing, absolutely nothing. And I guess he was out there and it was nighttime, and she had just walked out of her house in the middle of the night and walked straight towards him. He was like dumbfounded because he was like, how did you know where I was? And she was like, well, they told me. And he was like, you know, at that point I was still pretty skeptical. And they kind of had a like exchange of a few words, and then eventually she was like, well, do you want to go see him? And he was like, well, yeah, I want to go see him. So she took him, and I guess when she went out there, she was calling all these different names, just saying all these different names. And he said he started hearing all these branches breaking in the trees, and he could hear them coming, but he couldn't see anything. And he said that one of them said to him in his head, and he said the first time I heard it, I didn't believe it. He said, but then I heard him say it the second time, and he said, wow. He's like, yeah, they are talking to me. One of them asked him, why do you have a gun? And he said, well, I keep this for protection. He said, but I carry this around my family and my friends, and and I don't harm them, and I'm not here to harm you. It's just something that I carry. And he said that he told her, one of them just asked me, why I have a gun in my pocket. And they asked me to step away from you, to step back away from you. And she said, well, please do what they ask you, to do. And he said it was the hardest couple steps that he got to take ever in his life. But he said, they were friends with her, and they were not friends with him. And they knew everything about him, but they didn't like how he felt like that he needed to do that. And so in my head, I was thinking, he was driving around that property for 2 days trying to find this experience, but the whole time they're like, this dude has a gun. We're not going anywhere near him, and not interacting with him. But it took her like bridging that gap of like, he is okay, and he was honest with them about why he carried a gun, and that he wasn't there to hurt them or hurt her, but they still didn't want, anything to do with that. But he said that after he did that, and I guess he like left the area, that's when one of them like presented themselves to him, and he got to see it. And he just said it was the coolest experience he'd ever had in his life. And basically he was like, it's a picture perfect, of an illustration of a Sasquatch that you've ever seen, in your life. And but he was just like, they know, and they can communicate with you. I just thought that was really neat because he thought he needed protection, but if he would have went out there and just like tried to maybe, just like embrace just being out there and not feeling the need to have a gun on him, maybe he would have had a different experience. But
I mean, even on the other side, I don't think the gun's going to do much against the Sasquatch anyways. So it's like, if you're bringing it for protection against other stuff in the woods, that's one thing. But if you're bringing it against the Sasquatch, it ain't going to do you no good anyways.
Right. I thought it was funny that they like, question him, and she's like, just tell them the truth. They're going to know if you're, I guess that's what lady said. Some lady said that they can like see your aura, basically, like how some people can see people's aura colors, but they can tell if people have good intentions or not good intentions. And maybe that's why they interact with me, because I talk to them, and I say stuff like, I wish there could be a way where like we could like try to protect you guys, or, if people know about you, like, then we would have to protect you, and no one's going to know how to do that. So, maybe we just don't interact, and maybe that's like for the best. Like people say, the extraterrestrials or other beings, some of them, and I say some of them because we don't know all of them, but I think some of them don't interact with us because maybe they were worshipped, and maybe that's not what they want to be. Maybe that's not, they're not God. So it's like, they don't want us to be obsessed with them, or, they want to help, but maybe they can't help because if they interact with us, then that does more harm than it does good. Maybe that's the same with Sasquatch, like there's this like one story that they've told about how Sasquatch used to live up on the mountains, and the little fairy people would go down in the valley and they'd interact with the human people, and the Sasquatch didn't like that, and that's why they cursed the small people to the valley. And they're like, I told Bo this, they're like Amish people. Like when Amish kids get to a certain age, you get to go and do whatever you want, and you can go and live that life, and you can do that, but you're going to be shunned from your community, and you're never allowed back if you decide that you want to continue to keep doing those things. But you can live their life and live how they live, and it's a pretty good life. And I think that's how Sasquatches are really simple, and they have been doing this for a very long time, and they don't need us. They actually don't want us, because I don't think that a lot of humans are very, very kind to this earth. So I think that's another reason why they don't like us. I think they probably despise us for all the habitats we're killing, and pollution, and all the water and all that stuff.
I mean, I always heard stories from my grandma, and she was 100% Cherokee. She used to basically say that there was this, they used to interact with the Sasquatch, and then once the white settlers came, they pretty much said, if you choose to trade and interact with them, then you're cutting off ties with us. And they basically split and went different ways after that, and they still existed around them. They kind of knew that, like, this is your area, this is my area, but there stopped being that communication back and forth once the white settlers came in, which realistically, they brought guns, they brought all these things that seem to be the common motif, like you were talking about, that they try to avoid now. So, I mean, completely makes sense.
It's so sad, because like those Native American people did not ask for that. Like, they did not ask for their whole entire culture to be basically
should have listened to the Sasquatch in the first place, and then they could have teamed up with the Sasquatch to push everybody else out.
I'm part Native American, and the ladies at Flint Paranormal, the lady goes, I was going to ask you if you're Native American. She's like, we think that Native American people have you might have an unknown relationship with them, like bloodline wise, that you don't necessarily know about. And because they hear a lot of people who are Native American have stronger relationships with them, even just like people, not necessarily people who like live on reservations, like just Native American people who live out in the country have these like multiple relationships with like families of them, like, and she was letting me listen to them, but one of her Native American friends, she has property, and she just goes out in a tent and she just sleeps out on her property in the middle of the woods, and she calls it their party. It's this video, it's just an audio recording, but it's of them just like yelling at each other. And it goes on forever. And she just says that she will go out there and they will, do these things. And she has like an offering tree and all kinds of crazy stuff. And it's just like, it's much more common. Like people having these relationships with them is a lot more common than, I guess, people who don't understand this world think about. But I'm just glad so many people are sharing their stories, and like people are going out and interviewing these people to make people more open-minded, because there's so many good stories out there, and so many people who had like really long relationships with these beings, I guess.
I mean, even on the other side too, there's a lot of times where people will see their faces and say that they look like Native American faces. And when you get into like the whole DNA testing aspect of it, they say that it's female human DNA mixed with an unknown male DNA. So, I mean, like you were saying, that could have been that connection. I mean, there could have been breeding, because there was all these old stories about the women getting taken from the village and stuff too. I mean, again, that could be the tie right there.
Yeah. I've heard of a story of it was kind of like a crazier one, but this lady like lived in a village and like had a relationship with a Sasquatch and ended up having a child with the Sasquatch. And then they still lived in the village, but the toddler like developed a relationship with the father, the Sasquatch, and he ended up like running off with her one day. And this is like a documented case. I want to say she got off on like insanity or something like that because of like the case, but they try to say that she like killed the girl or did something like that because they couldn't find her. She was missing and they had no idea what happened to the girl. And the mom kept saying she went with the Sasquatch dad. And nobody believed her, but then they kept having this sighting of this, I can't remember what, it's the name of the female Sasquatch, and I can't remember what they called her, but there's like this specific name that they have for her, but like, she's like a legend, and cause I think she was like really hairy too. The baby was, and she grew a lot faster than most children. So like when she was like 3, she was like, like 180 pounds or something like that, like crazy big. Yeah, I've heard, and like I said, I've listened to all kinds of documentaries, and I will listen to anybody's story, as crazy as it might sound. They all fascinate me.
Hold that thought. We'll be right back. And we are back, so let's hop right in. I mean, there's the whole Xana from Abkhazia thing, which happened over in Russia/Georgia area. And the whole idea was basically that they found this wild woman, Sasquatch, being out in the woods, and they actually brought her into town, and story gets kind of messed up, but locals basically were trying to like get with her, and she ended up having a couple different kids, and she killed the first and I think the second one, if I'm not mistaken, by dunking it in the river when it was cold to try to clean it off after she gave birth to it, which fits for the whole Sasquatch thing. If it was 100% Sasquatch baby, it'd probably be completely fine, but because it was mixed with that human DNA, it wasn't able to survive it, and she ended up having I think 4 kids in all, and a couple of them died. There was like 1 or 2 of them left, and they ended up growing up to have like full lives and everything. But definitely an interesting story. I ended up covering it on my other show, Bizarre Encounters, at one point. But just another one of people finding one of these things, it actually being a documented case, and knowing that the genetics are different, and there's still also that function of it seems to work and be compatible with human DNA. Maybe because it is partially human DNA, or it's just one of those weird things that certain things are able to breed with other things, and it just the genetics just line up properly,
Right. There's always some sort of consequence though, regardless, because I didn't know that like ligers were like serious. Like I knew about them from Napoleon Dynamite.
Yep.
I literally didn't know that it was a thing. And there's this place called Turpentine Creek in Arkansas. It's close to the Crescent Moon Hotel, but they had one there. He recently passed away, but if anyone thinks those are cool, they may look cool. But if anyone doesn't know this, whenever you mix a tiger and a lion together, when a tiger is born, the mom and the dad give the offspring certain genes, and one of the genes that they give you is to stop growing, and the male is the one that gives you the gene to stop growing. So a liger will never stop growing his entire life. he will have the worst joint pains you could probably ever imagine.
They're also sterile too. They can't actually reproduce after that. Same with when you mix a horse and a donkey and make a mule, it stops there. They can't breed and reproduce after that either. They become sterile.
It was sad. Like, he was like 800 pounds, and they're like, he will just continue to keep getting bigger every single day, and his joint pains will just continue to get worse because he's so heavy and so massive. And I mean, he was beautiful, but I'm like, that's like, there's consequences for when people do stuff like that.
It's playing God. Because it wouldn't happen naturally in nature.
Like that. Yeah.
But I guess kind of starting to wrap up towards the end. And I definitely love to have you come back on because I'm sure you have a bunch more experiences that we can definitely dive into. But I always like to leave it on a high note with words of wisdom. So if there's any words of wisdoms you could bestow on the listeners, be it to the other photographers out there, to people that have had experiences, whoever it might be, what would your words of wisdom be?
Definitely just never stop exploring, for sure. That's like my big motto. We all have like ups and downs in life, and there's sometimes where I get in like ruts and, I don't feel like getting out. I don't feel like shooting or doing something, but just always find something positive in what you do. Even if it's something really small. I just really like getting out, being in nature and sharing like my perspective of things. I know I see life like so differently than most people, and you just got to let your freak flag fly. Don't let anybody get you down. Seriously, it's very hard. I've learned that by my social media kind of exploding most recently. Nobody ever really cared about my photography. I mean, a lot of people liked it, but I've been doing a lot of like conspiracy theory videos, alien, Sasquatch, Dogman, like you name it. I want to know about it, and I want everyone else to be interested in that stuff because I think it's important. It's all part of our story that we have no idea, probably even a quarter of it. But yeah, I just want everyone to just like get out there. Like, you can get your own evidence. You can have your own experiences if you're open to them. If you're not open to them, then definitely don't go out into the woods by yourself because it will happen. I've told my boss, she's not my boss anymore. She used to be the president of our company, but everyone used to always ask everybody that started at our work like, if they believe in Sasquatch. Alex wants to know if you believe in Sasquatch. Oh my gosh. And so we asked Courtney one day and she laughed. She laughed so hard. I mean, when people laugh at you and you're just like, yeah, they think you're crazy. She definitely had that laugh. And I was like, you know what? I was like, I cannot wait. Like, she goes on runs all the time. Like, she goes on walks, like, calm down. And I'm like, I'm telling you this for a reason, because one day you are going to have maybe an experience and you're going to think about me and you're going to remember this moment when you laughed at me and thought I was crazy. And I hope it's a good one. And I hope you call and tell me about it.
I mean, I definitely think exploration is something that is lacking in a lot of people because it's a human nature. And if you aren't exploring, then you end up getting stuck in this rut. And I feel like that's probably a huge aspect of why people just feel like they're trapped in their lives nowadays. And going into the story that you mentioned, I had a very similar story recently. I was at work, and I don't usually talk about a lot of the stuff I do at work just because I don't know how people are going to take it and stuff. The right people, of course, I'll talk about stuff with.
Right.
But it randomly came up the other day, and I was with a couple different groups, a couple different guys that I work with and stuff. And somehow we got on the topic of like hiking, the Appalachian Trail and stuff, and I like brought up Sasquatch for 2 seconds, and the guy was like, "You go squatching on the Appalachian Trail, and you got buddies that do that?" He's like, I'm like, yeah, it's like squatching, like looking for Sasquatch. So he's like, yeah, so hiking, because you don't find nothing. And he started laughing and shit, and I was just like, ha ha ha. But the funny part is, I know he's like a city slicker, so to speak. Like, he doesn't really like leave the city or nothing like that. So it's just like, I know he'll never have one of those experiences. But on the other end, it's kind of hard to believe if you never leave the city. So
that's exactly how Courtney. That's exactly how I would describe her. She just is such a city person, and she would just, there's this little neighborhood across from where I work at in the city, and one day we just saw her walking, and I'm like, why is she okay? Why is she over there? And they're like, oh, she goes on walks all the time. And I was like, oh, she's going to see Sasquatch one day. I was like, I cannot wait for that.
You're going to unintentionally manifest it, and she's just going to come across one like,
she definitely laughed like, you're absolutely nuts. And no, I don't believe in that. But then there's some people like my new boss. She totally does. Someone said she would like always like speak for me, but she would like, I was supposed to know, do you believe the earth is flat or round? I'm like, no, it's not even like that. I mean, I'm open to anybody's theories on that, but I don't have a specific, I think it's this way or that way. But my one boss now, she's like, no, I've been really like delving into the Bible lately. And she's like, what is that called?
The firmament?
Yeah, the firmament. Yeah, she was talking about that. And I was like, oh my gosh, you're my boss? Like, this is going to go great. Like, she got me ice cube trays that are flying saucers and planets and like rocket ships. Like, that was my 1 year anniversary. So they're completely supportive and I love it.
You just got to find the right group of people, and then you kind of just hang out with those people.
You're darn right. Like they're so excited. One of my coworkers is like, "Can you please tell somebody that you want to be a guest on their podcast? Because I need more. I need more of your stories." I was like, okay, got you.
Well, here's another one to pass to her, right?
Yes, they're excited. I told them that I was coming on here, so they were super excited.
And if anybody wanted to come and check out your work, check out your photography, check out these pictures, if I didn't include all of them in the cover art, which I'll try to include a couple of them for sure, or if people possibly live in the area and they've had their own weird experiences with this stuff and they don't know who to tell them to, where can everybody come and find you on the internet?
Yeah, thank you. It's ASHAE_photography, so it should read Shae Photography. That's on Instagram, and you can message me on there. That's about the only social media that I use. I've been on there for years, and I just recently hit 13K, and I'm so pumped because that's my lucky number, and I feel like I'm just going in the right direction, and I keep building and keep finding more people that enjoy the same content. You know, I make funny stuff. I make funny videos. I make serious videos. I try to put a little bit of humor in there because, you know, a lot of this stuff can be pretty serious, or sometimes it can be pretty dark. And a lot for people who maybe aren't used to this subject. So sometimes you'll see some funny like Sasquatch videos that I make where, you know, people are making videos of where they're about to go out in the woods and they're like, you know, if you find this camera, you know, post it because we're probably aren't alive anymore. Like stuff like that, you know, it's like a point of view, me going out on, you know, Sasquatch hunting. So I try to post pictures too as well. But like I said, I haven't been out exploring as much. I'm trying to be a little more safe about that. I do have some stuff planned coming up, so hopefully I have some more to share. But yeah, if anybody is interested in my work or interested in sharing your stories with me, I would love to hear, especially around like the Blue Springs, Kansas City area. I would love that.
And I'll make sure I include your link down in the show description so everybody can find it quick and easy. And I appreciate you making the time to come on tonight. I know we got a little bit of a late start, so I'm glad that you hung out for me and we're able to do this full show and everything. And I'm looking forward to having you on again. And hopefully, I know you got a lot more experiences to talk about, and hopefully you'll have some more exciting stuff happen to you.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me on, Shayn. I really appreciate it.
Of course. If anyone is interested in being a guest on the show, having me as a guest on your show, sponsoring the show, or getting a hold of me for any reason whatsoever, you guys can get a hold of me through email, which is increaseourrealitypodcast@outlook.com, or through social media, Instagram or Facebook. Instagram is the one that I'm the most active on, of course. Or you guys can get a hold of me through the submission forms, which are available on the link tree. And if anybody is interested in podcast or audiobook production services, you guys can shoot me a message through Open Minds Media. The link tree for that is available down in the show description also. And every single thing that I mentioned throughout the entire show is available in the link tree, which is available down in the show description. And with that, hope you guys enjoyed the conversation, and I'll catch you on the next one. Have a good night, everybody.